Hey, this is Pat Barrett again. I'm going to do a video on a odd topic, hair. You notice I'm wearing my Obama shirt here because I would imagine for some of you that are young, it's very difficult to understand the emotional impact of Barack Obama, a black man, being elected president of the United States. And I want to give you a sense of how deep and yet utterly stupid some of the thinking was back in the early 2000s, okay? But I'm going to take you back to the 60s. That's when everything changed, let me tell you, including hair. Okay, so what's that? Well, I can illustrate this easily from some of my own experiences. When my wife and I were dating, I visited her place in South Phoenix, what we called the black part of town. Nationally, there was a term, the black ghetto and so forth, but that's where black people were forced to live. And she lived there, and one day she asked me if I could go to the store and get her some hair product. She gave me a name, something to look for. And of course, back then, supermarkets didn't have stores in black neighborhoods, but the small little store. And probably in New York City, they call them bodegas, or that kind of thing. And so I was looking for the product, and I couldn't find it on the shelf. And I turned and asked the owner. The owner was not black and not Caucasian. But she came over, and she was looking for it. I gave her the name. She couldn't find it. And I said, "It's for black hair." And she stiffened and turned and pointed to another shelf and stalked off. Pretty hostile. So I gave me a sense that there was an issue, as if I didn't know, in 1961, I think, 62. So later on, I found another strange attitude, this time among black people, when my wife told me after we were married that some of her friends would ask her, "Do you let him see your hair?" What a dumb question, right? I'm married to her. Of course I see her hair. What are you talking about? Oh, no. No. The pressure on black women to conform their hairstyles to white hairstyles was immense. It was considered, I don't know how to say it. It's not a question of fashion. It's a question of almost like going outside without your pants on or something. I mean, you just don't wear your hair like that. As time went on, black women, through affirmative action and other legal methods, began to get jobs in companies, firms, agencies, etc., where black women had not worked before. Or if they did, and I can think of a couple of examples, they definitely wore their hair to look like a white person's hair, okay? But in the 60s, as black women were taking up these jobs, there was a revolution, basically called Black Pride. And black people in general began wearing their hair in styles that conformed more to their own hair texture. Some people refer to it as kinky. And you can imagine the different styles, the afro, everyone knows that, the cornrow, etc., dreads, etc., etc. Well, black women began showing up at work with these styles, and if they did not change back to styles that conform to white people's hair, they could lose their jobs, and often did. Now, I think if you go back to the 70s and do a little research on this, you'll find that it was quite common. Well, eventually white people got over it, and black people began wearing the hair. And then another big shock, a very lovely white actress, Bo Derek was her name. She appeared in a movie with her hair in cornrows. I mean, you know, well, it's kind of like those movies, like Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, where this daughter, beautiful, educated white woman, marries a beautiful, educated black man. And oh my gosh, the movie was just huge, you know. So people were struggling with this, including black people. You know, they've spent, now why was this attitude toward hair? Well, you know, the value, particularly during slavery, is the black person of African heritage who could look the whitest, lighter skin being a major one, hair, etc., speech, huge emphasis. You sometimes might get a better position. Instead of working in the fields, you might get a position working in the household, etc. Okay, enough of that. We can talk about that forever. But I think it's important to realize that we have come a very long ways, and even for white people, because during this same period, young white men began wearing their hair long. And I can tell you, when I was a kid, only two kinds of white guys wore their hair long. And some people may object to this term, but I'm one of them. So, you know, I say, well, it's okay because I'm one. Hillbillies, you know, people from the mountains, you know, they wore their hair long. And orchestra conductors, because they were usually from overseas somewhere and they wore their hair long. Other than that, you had a crew cut or, you know, really short hair. And when young white men began wearing their hair long, oh boy, all hell broke loose. And there were real battles over this. So back to black hair, that shows you the immaturity, the irrationality. If you want to see different styles of black hair, go to some of the music videos from West Africa, and you will see a great variety of very traditional African hairstyles. So this was always available. It was the pressure to look white that kept black women wearing those difficult to maintain hairstyles. So at this point, I just want to say that I'm glad we've had a chance to talk about this odd subject that highlights how superficial and irrational and silly a lot of these prejudices are. And thanks for watching.